The Cherry Stem Killer, Chapter 3. I spent hours at the medical examiner's office, going over every detail of the victim with Dr. Andrews. His testicles were removed post-death, and speaking of that, the cause was the obvious large slash wound across his throat. I believe the victim was put to ease with a promise of a night of pleasure, and allowed his guard to come down, and allowed himself to be tied up. There was no drugs present at the scene, or found in his body. This was purely sexual. Unfortunately for him, he trusted the wrong woman. After hours toiling at the coroner's office, I was finally spent. I had enough of the smells, enough of the sights of flesh, and the fluorescent lights were giving me a pounding headache. It was time for me to go home. I needed some semblance of sleep for the days and weeks ahead, however long it takes to catch this woman. I grabbed the folder from Dr. Andrews to look in finer detail later on of the victim and his demise, and left for home. I arrived home shortly after and ate the meal my wife left for me warming in the oven. Meatloaf, my favorite, accompanied with mashed potatoes, a squirt of some Heinz 57 on those taters, and I was all set. Something I never even thought about doing until my wife introduced me to the concept. But ketchup on the mashed potatoes really is quite delicious. As I sat at the table, my wife walked in and kissed my forehead. "Does it taste good, my love?" she asked. I nodded my head in approvement and said, "Yes, baby, very much so." She smiled and gave me a kiss. I asked her how her day was, and she said it was fine. Cleaned the house and took care of the kids. She then looked at me with a smile and said she had exciting news to tell me. And even though I was exhausted, I pushed it aside and was full attention to what she had to say. I knew this case was going to take up most of my time, so I wanted to spend as much time with her as I could. I sat waiting for her news, and she proceeded to say, "Guess who I just found out I'm related to now?" she said with such excitement. I tried to contain my annoyance, but I was rolling my eyes on the inside. You see, my wife's big into Ancestry.com and similar sites like it. Her DNA's been matched with famous people and royalty alike. Lots of royalty, actually, and while it is very cool, I hear about a new ancestral relation almost every day, and after a rough day, I wasn't thrilled about hearing of her latest ancestor, but I smiled and said, "Who's the latest person you're related to now, my love?" She smiled and said, "More royalty, another from England, a Lord Neville Burlington, the 8th Earl of Burlington. Not just one of the most noblest of families in all of England. Their bloodline is descended from kings." I sat there and nodded my head. "That's great, dear," I said lovingly. But in my head, I was thinking it's just another royal she's related to, like the countless others she's mentioned. From England to France, Spain, and Germany, they're all just a bunch of cousin humpers. I went back to finishing my meal so I could go to bed, when that name began to annoy me. Neville Burlington. Why do I know that name, my love? I know it wasn't just remembering from school, I said inquisitively. Well, he and his wife were just in the news. Their belongings were recently found in the attic of their ancestral manor, and it was revealed he was the famous serial killer, the Prowler, and his wife helped in the killings of a few of his final victims. They're both my 5th great-grandparents. Isn't that exciting? Oh, and it also was revealed that Neville's brother was Jack the Ripper, and he killed him before he retired. Isn't all of this interesting? She said excitedly. Maybe a little too excited if you ask me. She sat there smiling, staring at her phone as she read up on her new killer ancestors. I bent down and kissed her goodnight. I was tired. Dog-tired. Before I headed upstairs, she informed me she had to leave to take care of her mother who was sick, and she needed to take her some medicine and soup. So I had to keep an ear out for the kids. I told her, of course, but she would have to be quick about things because I was on call 24/7 with this new killer on the loose especially. She kissed me and I went to bed. The clock said 9:30 as I closed my eyes. About 3 hours later, I felt my wife crawl into bed, and she kissed my cheek before I fell back to sleep. About 2 hours later, I was woken once again, except this time it was by my phone. Shit. I knew this would happen. God forbid I get any rest around here. I answered it angrily. It was Charles, the second detective working on the case. As he gave me an update I didn't want. There was another victim. The cherry stem killer has struck again. I would like to give a heartfelt thank you to the special friends of the channel for your overwhelming generosity. If you would like to support the channel, the link is below in the description. Also, please send me your stories and poems to duchessofdarkness27@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at duchess.ofdarkness and Twitter at duchessofdarkn2. I want to thank all my listeners for your kindness, your encouragement, and your support. It means the world to me. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.